From the entrepreneur's desk
to the industry front lines
and into real world operations.
I'm Aaron Cardell, joined by Kyle Hunter and Jake Hamilton, and we're here to take the pulse of real estate technology in just 20 minutes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Proptech Pulse today. I'm very excited to have a special guest here, Sarita Dua. Sarita brings a very unique perspective to real estate, coming from an engineering background. She's actually the team leader and operator at Keller Williams Sunset Corridor. But I'd love her to actually do a little introduction herself, because she can obviously tell you better about herself than I can. So Sarita, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Kyle. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so happy to be here. So just a little bit about myself. I am I'm a seasoned real estate agent. I've been licensed since 2003. So I've been selling real estate for 22 years. However, this is sort of my second full-time gig after a 14-year career in high-tech sales and marketing. My background is actually, I'm an electrical engineer by trade. I went to a school in Michigan called Kettering University and got my bachelor's in electrical engineering. I then went on to get my MBA at Boston University way back in the late 90s. And then, as if that wasn't enough, I had a nice little midlife crisis. And in May 2020, we were kind of the class of COVID. I graduated with an executive MBA from MIT. So my background's electrical engineering, a couple of MBAs, 14 years in high-tech sales and marketing, and then 22 years full-time as an agent. So I bring an interesting perspective to real estate. I do manage a small team. We're 3 to 4 agents, an admin, a TC, and we are small and mighty here in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, very good. So, I mean, that is very interesting. I'm actually around a lot of engineers. My wife is an engineer, and I'm not by far. I was more in the finance side, but I can tell you that is a very unique perspective to bring that. I'm sure there's a lot of process involved. I'm sure that, you're very forward thinking, but I'd love to hear a little bit about how you apply some of the things that, maybe you've learned both from, I guess, the engineering side, but also the MBA. So bringing that business side with the engineering background, how do you apply that to a high producing real estate team?
Sure. I think, what's interesting too is I didn't wake up and say, oh, I'm an engineer and I want to be a realtor now. So a little bit of that, I feel like my life is so many kind of happy accidents. Like if you would have told me when I was studying circuits and dynamics and some of these classes that I would end up not needing any of them and I would be selling houses instead, I would have just laughed at you, right? So I actually got into real estate because I had young kids and I wanted the flexibility of being able to work all the time, but still work for myself. But true to like who I am, I would say, I think for me as an engineer, engineering taught me that like everything really is a system. However, when we hear the word system, it's loaded, right? Like, oh my gosh, is that a complicated computer platform? Is it, a bunch of hardware? Is it a bunch of software? A system can be as simple as a checklist. Really, a system to me is something that's repeatable and predictable. It creates predictable success. So if I take that foundation of kind of how I look at things, and then I layer in some of the things I learned at MIT, and I will geek out a little, probably for maybe the 1 or 2 people from MIT that might be watching this on replay someday. There was classes like systems design thinking, another class that we called OLAB, organizational lab, and then one of my favorites, DMD, data models and decisions. All of these frameworks for me were really how to break complex problems into simple solutions, or not even simple solutions, but chunk them down. And a lot of what MIT taught me is, one, how to think big and really ask yourself, what is the problem you want to solve? The other thing that we learned in grad school was basically that observe before you solve, right? I think as realtors, sometimes we're like emergency room doctors and nurses, or triage, people in a hospital. Like, there's someone coming in with a cut, let's solve it, right? And I think it's Einstein that said, like, if you have an hour to solve a problem, you should be spending about 55 minutes thinking about the solution and 5 minutes actually solving it. And so I think sometimes we solve problems, but we don't solve the right ones because we don't ask ourselves, what is the problem we want to solve? What is actually happening? Is it a symptom or is it a problem? So those are some of the things that really have guided me. And actually, people ask me, well, if you knew now what you did then, would you go straight to real estate? Like, what even do the technical background? But I really do think real estate is so related. It's really, even my background in sales and marketing, it's really people, project management, and process management, right? It's if you're selling or just marketing, you're not really a great realtor or advisor. It's about relationships, right? It's about connecting and understanding what your client needs and then advocating for them, telling them every step of the way, this is what happened, this is what's happening now, this is what's happening next. All that, I like to think of myself, I'll stop talking now, I promise after this. I like to think of myself as high tech and high touch. All the high tech stuff is really, really important. But it's the reason it's so important is it because it frees you up time-wise to really do the touch part, which is build relationships, meet people where they are, get deep with them, understand what they want and what they don't, and go from there. So that's a little bit about kind of who I am and why I am the way I am.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's great. And I think that having a unique combination of process and system-oriented education and training and background, and then, very unique MIT, known for technical, but getting an MBA from there kind of applies both sides of that. And I'm around a lot of engineers. Sometimes that relationship side and that ability to connect with people, is the piece that needs to be trained. And that's where I think you really excel. So taking those two pieces and combining them, because we all know, real estate is a belly-to-belly industry. I mean, it still is today. People want to trust who they're working with. They want to know that you're working for them and helping them in many cases, most cases, the biggest purchase that they'll ever make. So, I think that is a great approach. And so, with you having such a strong technical background, and then, just to point out, you're also on the Lone Wolf Advisory Board. I think you're on a few other boards as well. But basically, how do you take some of that forward thinking and some of the things that are happening today around maybe AI or, template building or other hacks that you use where you're applying some of that technology to, your day-to-day business and trying to drive more business?
Thanks for asking that, because I feel like it's such a hot button right now. Like, I mean, if we had $1 for any time anyone said AI, right, we'd all be zillionaires. It's like AI, it's everywhere. And sure, at the beginning, AI was kind of like my co-pilot. I used it for, hey, help me reword this, help me with my listing remarks, create presentation or marketing template. The amazing speed at which AI operates really does take mundane tasks and make them, really eliminate a lot of the noise and make them go faster. I now think that people erroneously use AI as this easy button, right? Like they lose themselves and they're just like, ChatGPT could just do all this for me. Honestly, ChatGPT should be your companion and it should be sort of part of your brain, but it should be you. It should reflect you. You should almost be having a conversation with it and have it. What I love about AI is having, using, like, for example, if I'm analyzing a property to do a CMA, to actually pour a bunch of data into it and just say, summarize the trends, right? Or if you're doing a listing report to a seller that's on the market, tell me what happened last week. That we can look at how many clicks it got on the different portals, what went pending nearby, what the market trends were for that county, analyze the feedback and the patterns. A lot of those things that I would sit down with a clipboard and a pencil and manually do, it really does take that and compress it in a way. Now, that doesn't mean my job is quicker and faster. What I do with that extra time is, again, get on the phone. This is such a contact sport. For me and my team, we still measure how many real estate conversations are we having a day. And the AI helps me do some of those tasks that used to just take forever quickly. And I use it in my personal life too, for planning vacations, for eating around my macros. I'm actually training for the New York Marathon. It'll be my 6th marathon and my 5th time doing New York. And even just around, what should my workout plan be? I'm modifying. I've got this going on this week. Can you design the perfect week for me, right? In terms of how many miles I need to get and what I should be eating and when I should do my recovery. It's amazing how it's evolved. But I do want to caution people who think my life is easy. I could just press this easy button. It's not. The quality of your output is based on the quality of your input, right? And so it has to be something where you're feeding it reliable information and also questioning. You got to question the information you're getting as well.
Yeah, no, and that's really cool. Similarly, I'm using AI personally. I actually used it I just did a 75 hard, which is kind of like a mental competition type thing. And I uploaded
very familiar, and I'm going like this. Congrats for doing it.
And I say I finished it. I actually planned to do 40 days just to make sure I could. And now I'm starting my next one and I'm trying to do 50 days. So I'm going to build up to completing it. But it's cool because I was able to upload my blood work and it tells me what supplements and it tells me recommendations. And you can't trust everything, but at least it gives you some grounded information that you can take back and, share with professionals. Macros, you mentioned that, it really help you identify, what can help you. So that's really cool in your personal life. And then transmitting into the business life, I was actually at a Jared James advance session last week, I guess, 2 weeks ago. And he did a really cool process on AI where you go in and, you put in things like what's the top agents in my market? And then you say, okay, well, where'd you get this information? Okay, well, how can I be one of those top agents? And you kind of continue to build on the answers that it will to put out, because so many people are starting their searching or doing research or doing things, from AI. So optimizing that to find, find yourself in there, I think is important. And then the other thing I think, from my perspective, is that they're not all equal. I think that, there's different ones. I actually have, Claude and Perplexity, and I have, Grok, and then ChatGPT, and a lot of times I'll put it in the same prompts and the same information into multiples to see if that comes out to get a different result or a better result. So a lot of cool things. I really love your that perspective on AI.
Kyle, I also love that you said that you started your 75 hard with first 40 days, then 50 days, and you're building it up. And I would say that for me, it's funny because it's still a mental thing for me. I don't think of myself as a marathoner or even a runner. I think of myself as like a fast walker, but the reality is I am doing my 6th one. So there is something there. And the reality for marathon trading too is like, you have to build it up, right? It's a little bit every day. And then you look back and you see the progress you've made. You can't short circuit it. You certainly can have a bad day. You can have a bad run. You can get back on track in a day or even in a couple of days, but you can't skip training for 3 weeks or 3 months and then wake up and go, oh, I'm going to be good. And so relationships, I think there's a famous quote from the founder of Under Armour, Kevin Plank. His name is Kevin Plank. It's trust is built in drops. I'm going to butcher the quote, so I'll find it. But trust is built in drops at a time, but relationships can go away like in a bucket. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that's the thing. It's just a little bit at a time. And so I think it's important for us to chat about, well, what do we do with all the time savings, right? I already mentioned making phone calls, but like still one of my best hacks of all time is video. I send a personalized video. Well, it feels like it's personalized, but it's not. It's to my entire database twice a month. And my brand is Ask Sarita. So I pride myself on answering questions that people may ask me. So if somebody asks me, hey, should I inspect my house before I list? Okay, that's a great question. I'm going to shoot a video, because if you wonder, Kyle, that you should you pre-inspect your house, maybe someone else is wondering that too.
Sure.
And those videos, I was so in my head about, am I having a good hair day? What if I sound, dumb, or I look dumb, or whatever? And then I had to really just wake up and say, it's not about me. It's about them. They need this information. And they're very natural. They're not super polished. They're just me. But what I realize is when I run into a client at the store, or when I actually sit down with them for a consultation later, they actually feel like they know me because they've been watching my videos and they feel connected to me. And so you got to do things that high touch piece is so important. You can't just roboticize this to be so systematized that we forget our personalities. And I think that that's a point of, if it was a key takeaway for people, I'd feel great to know that, like, look, you used AI for what? For that connection, for that common ground.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, it's really helping scale personal relationships or scale human connection. BombBomb's been around for years. I don't know which video you use, but basically the ability to create those short videos that, people connect. They want to see it. We have a product called Boost, which boosts listings, and Lone Wolf. And we made a change about a year ago to video, and the engagement in video versus, flat photos or things is just tremendous. Like, people love seeing video and how they interact, and it just creates that personalization. And so, that's a great point. And just to further that, what are some of the things that you do with your team to kind of keep a personal vibe going by, but still using and injecting technology to be able to free up time and scale and do all the things we've talked about?
Well, I think that, again, we value face-to-face a lot. We're all remote as a team. So even for us, we do a lot of stuff on Zoom. We're constantly on Slack. But then making sure we get together for that team lunch, or we do something in the community. I think that connection's really important. In fact, the last subject of our team meeting was around the 5 levels of relationship building. Level 1 being, the weather, and level 2 starting to talk about opinions, and then really at the 4th and 5th level getting really, really deep and where you put yourself out there. We were talking about that in a way. It's just very interesting, right? Because in order to connect with people, you have to share parts of yourself. You don't want to monopolize and make it about you, but if you don't share parts of yourself, you're not connecting with others. So we spend a lot of time on skills building and training and practice and motivational things to make sure that people remember that those are really important. We're using AI for call. So our number one tech tool is our database. And we're in there with AI coaching insights, right? So that if I know that I have a call with Kyle, it might say, talk to him about 75 hard. So it's looking at things and giving me suggestions. Or last time you talked about his kid, ask how his kid's doing. And so just things like that, where you live in your database, you trust your database. It's important then, number 1, to have a database. Number 2, to have all of your information in a database. Because guess what? I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that a system can be as simple as a checklist. There are plenty of agents that manage their whole business by Excel. They've got their customer list in Excel, their holiday list, their client party list. But if you don't have a repository where you've got everybody in one place and notes about every interaction with that person, you're really missing that total full view of that client and how you should be and can be interacting with them more than you are now. So doing that, also making sure for us, having everybody on a listing alert, having everybody on a home value report. And then guess what? It's so easy to decide who to call. It's the ones that are the most interactive with our technology. Hey, if Kyle looked at 4 listings, I might want to check in with them and say, how you doing? I was just thinking about you. Oh my goodness, you're psychic. I was just looking at condos. And so it's just that piece of, I know that sounds big brother, but it's really just being aware and then connecting and meeting them where they are. I did find the quote, by the way, trust is built in drops and lost in buckets. And I love that quote because it's so incremental and you have to work on it all the time. But you can really you could really lose it if you lose sight of that relationship. And in a second, you can definitely you'd have to rebuild. And I think that's really important to be aware of.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, I think that from my perspective, kind of some of the themes that I've picked up from our conversation today is that, going back to your MIT Executive MBA program, the data class that you talked about, it sounds like you use a lot of data, but you personalize that data. So whether it's, identifying what someone's, looking for, or I love the ability, or talking about going in and using the market and using information and really using tools to further the relationship and the closeness between you and your customer. And so that really I think has been great for this session. I think the last thing, we're about to wrap up, but if you just quick 3 points maybe that you would say you would recommend for busy agents, like 3 things that you would recommend to create efficiency for busy agents.
Lean into your database, go all in, and make sure that you're using that. It could replace a person in the sense that it can be your assistant. Mm-hmm. And then I'd say the reminder, I know I've said it multiple times, but tech is the scaffolding, if you will. Relationships are the heart. If you're finding like you have shiny object syndrome and you want to take every class and acquire every piece of technology, and you're not taking the time to just connect with people, you're missing the boat. And I think the last thing is consistency compounds in everything, in running, in relationships, in business. And so take one thing, do it really well, then add another thing. Don't go, well, I saw these 4 podcasts and I'm going to go all in on these 6 things. You're going to fail. Like, just do one thing and do it really well, and then add it in. And I think that's even when we go to conferences and things, it's an art to be able to just take all the noise away and just say, this is the 1 or 2 things that I learned from this, and this is going to be my focus for the next 6 months. So start small, double down on it, as opposed to trying to solve world hunger and burning out a couple of days in.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great suggestions. Sarita, a great pleasure of having you today. I really appreciate you joining, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Kyle. It's an honor to be here.
That's our pulse for today.
Keep innovating.
Keep implementing.
And keep moving real estate forward.